So, yeah, as you can see, what we really wanted to do here is to look at decolonising the curriculum and some lessons that we've learned about supporting the team to engage in decolonisation work. And although this is work that's been done with the liaison librarian team, it's really about work that I think can be applied across university and can actually perhaps signal some of the things, hopefully you'll feel the same way, that we might want to be thinking about as we try to address this quite difficult topic, actually, for many people. And actually, our keynote speaker, I kind of caught the final tail end. She had a question right at the very end where someone had asked about decolonisation. She actually alluded to the fact that it can be a sensitive, difficult, uncomfortable conversation to have, and that sometimes people can become defensive. So what we're talking about here is a group of people who themselves are trying to feel as though they understand, trying to navigate this space both from the external, the environment that we live in society, but also from the perspective of how can I do this? How can I work with other people who themselves might be feeling comfortable? So academic liaison librarians kind of work to support, teach, learning and research across the university, but they've got kind of three core strands of work that I think I just wanted to highlight. And those strands of work are they teach on modules, so they teach on the curriculum. They're literally embedded in the curriculum, working alongside academics to prepare students. So they have that direct connection. And then they work as well through the generic programme, which many of you will be familiar with, know-how. And then they have this other role of being a relationship management person for the library. So they're engaging with academics and staff, students, professional services, everybody really, to try to ensure that the library can deliver the best for the for students and their teaching and learning, and that they have the best outcomes and that they can succeed. And then they're there trying to make sure that people are aware of service delivery, what's happening, what's going on, what do you need to know. I'm sure many of you got tired of hearing about what's going on around COVID, but hey ho, lots of things were changing. So, that's the context. And then so within that context, really, looking at us as teachers, looking at us as people who are building relationships with academics and other staff. This is the context in which we were situated, and we started to know that this is a strategic priority, decolonisation. We want to support academics to be able to deliver this, and what is the library's role? How do we support that? I'm not saying we had the answers, we didn't. That's clear, and we didn't. Certainly, there might have been some people who had a clearer perspective about this than others, but it was very clear that this sort of differentiated view of an understanding about decolonisation. What is decolonisation? What does it mean? An understanding of how do we actually support academics. And so we started to do this. We set up sorry, I've just clicked on my screen and managed to remove it. You probably can still see it, but I can't. Just see the back. Just gonna pick that up. Right. I think that you can't see it, can you? Can you see it?
I think no. If you could start sharing again, Shirley, that would be lovely. Thank you.
Sorry about that. I just decided to click on the hey-oh. The joys of Teams. Right. So, yeah. Right, so what we wanted to do was set up a project team, academic liaison library and decolonisation project team. And I think just quickly to say that it's really important when we're doing this type of work to have a team and to also think about who's in that team. And I'll talk about that in terms of the lessons learned and what we did. Develop knowledge about decolonisation. It was our intent. with this group, develop confidence to engage with academics about decolonisation, create a safe space to have sustained, trusted dialogue. Now, that was really important. Those words are really key: sustained, trusted, and dialogue. And the safe space, of course, the really, really important components. Explore barriers and opportunities that liaison librarians felt would occur, and develop a shared team understanding of how our team could support decolonisation. And that's really important as well, that shared understanding, because often what happens in decolonisation work is you have a couple of champions, and they can achieve a lot, but you don't then build it through the team. And if we got to work with departments, schools and departments across the academic sphere, we need everybody to be engaged and involved and understand the concept. So this was the work that we were doing. So having set that scene of what's involved, what did we learn out of this? So we learned that we needed to develop a supportive team culture. Well, I didn't get a chance to kind of include in here literature, but Fugwell and others talk about the importance of looking at teaching and implementing culture. Change in teaching practices, that actually it's so important to have a supportive environment, a supportive department, team environment. And so creating that team culture, which signaled that it was okay that different members of the team were at different stages of the learning journey about decolonisation, was important, because it made people feel as though they could open up, they could accept their ignorance or not, and they could acknowledge where they were, and we're going to work together and move ourselves along in that process. We also made sure that it was a supportive environment where staff felt safe to share their concerns and be their authentic selves. So there were barriers and concerns about barriers that they felt that would exist in terms of talking to academics, because of some of the issues that I was like at the beginning of this presentation. It's a difficult topic. There's a lot of discussion about it in the external environment. And there's just a lot of concern about how will it be received, how will they be received. Will this serve to damage their relationship with academics? So all of those concerns were there, and we needed to give people that space to talk about it, and not where they wouldn't feel judged about what they felt, so that we could actually get to the heart of the issues and start to look at how we could address them. So we also then wanted to also, through this process, build confidence and identify solutions. And that this identifying of solutions by sharing perspectives with other people who were supportive members of the team, and seeing how they were handling it or how they were feeling, even just knowing that others felt the same way was actually a good thing, and helped us to move forward and help people to feel, okay, it's okay, I can see that I might do it this way, or that other people are having the same concerns. Let's see how we can move forward together. We needed to think about how we could support the development of knowledge about decolonisation. So this is a really, the word is used a lot, but it's not often interrogated to understand what it means too much. So sometimes there's a lot of different conflicting ideas of what it is. And that in itself can be difficult. So we wanted to provide ways to showcase the staff that decolonisation is something that they can talk about. It's aligned with university strategic objectives. So this is okay. And that reassurance is actually important, because actually showcasing that the university is serious about engaging in this work, that the Vice Chancellor is talking about it. So actually finding those little nuggets and drawing these things to the attention of staff is actually important, and actually gives what in many ways I consider to be the green light. It's okay to engage. Support staff to develop their understanding of decolonisation over time. So recognise it's not a one training activity that will solve all of the decolonising challenges. This is something that has to be sustained. It has to be something that time is allocated for, and that people have opportunities to come back to. Provide opportunities to start to learn about how decolonisation is being supported at Liverpool from invited speakers outside of our department. So we invited in CIA to talk about the inclusive value of the Liverpool curriculum, the inclusive curriculum toolkit, just to give that sense of understanding. Where does this all sit? And then also we've recently had some students come in and talk to us to give us that student voice and help us to understand how the students feel about it and give their experiences. But then we've created spaces to continue the conversation. So we've got a Teams channel. We've oftentimes post-workshop require people to complete Padlets, and we've used that information to feed forward into the session. So using mechanisms to keep the conversation going, giving opportunity to people to share about new training, new resources that have come on. It's amazing how that's been so wonderful to see happening and to see that conversation taking place. And then the scaffolded discussions by creating documents that enable feedback and collaboration to create buy-in agreement on how the team will approach decolonisation. So, for example, we've now created our library offer document, and we've got a way in which we can identify specific types of actions that we will take, or we should be taking, underneath each of those offers. We haven't got to the point of actually implementing it yet, but we actually have a clear roadmap, and that actually is a massive step forward for us. We've also, in terms of the pedagogy, we recognised that it was important for staff to have protected time. And staff gave us that feedback, we as librarians, allocating the diaries to engage in decolonisation. The diaries are busy. If we don't allocate time to this, it won't happen. I think that's true in many cases. So that actually recognised that this was important. Scaffolding and learning through provision pre and post workshop activities. Using active learning approaches, so providing space for reflection, group work, discussion and feedback, using polls, Padlets, videos, flipped classroom, obviously breakout rooms, those kinds of ways of actually ensuring that we are having dialogue and that people had space to reflect. Assess our staff in terms of their learning and development, how far they're going moving forward, using before and after polls, and obviously written feedback. Using Padlets and collaborative documents to facilitate engagement, developing a shared team understanding and approach to decolonisation. So I think this is my final slide here, so I hope I'm not too far over. So a small team was organised to create the workshop. As I said, we had that small team. It was 3 people, myself, Sandra Samaca, John Wright now, previously Nicola Gregory had been part of it as well. So that small team really kind of developed the programme and then shared that with invited our other colleagues to it. There are about 11 of us on the team. Team selection is really important. I think I've realised that the more that we've gone through the process. So at least include one person who is knowledgeable about decolonisation. And ensure that other team members are colleagues who are supportive and ideally that they volunteer. In other words, that they're committed to the process. They might not have a lot of knowledge, but they're actually committed and willing to work through. Now, they may have, moving to the last point here, but they might have diverse experience and they may have multiple perspectives, which might not all gel. All of our perspectives might not gel. But in that workshop planning phase, you have the opportunity then to talk and to put out these different perspectives, and that helps in terms of the planning of the programme and reaching the audience more effectively. I think that's as much as I want to say today, and I hope that those kinds of lessons learned have been helpful, and that this kind of overview of what we've been working on might be helpful to others. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shirley, for talking about that. I love the way that you've kind of had the whole team kind of, engaged, and kind of people who are at different stages of the journey. I think that's so important, isn't it? Because it is uncomfortable. People do kind of fall into, everyone does really, a sense of discomfort that your knowledge isn't good enough, that you're not entitled to kind of speak or to kind of think or to be creative in this area. But I think what you showed there was wonderful. I love the emphasis as well on sustained, trusted dialogue. I'm hoping others have questions, but I'm going to ask the first then, which is, did you have challenges with that, or how did you get that kind of trust, in particular, going in the dialogue? There's obviously anxieties around language, which changes, of course, kind of. It's very live in terms of our use of language that's appropriate kind of for this area, and that can cause anxiety. But we don't want people to switch off because they're too, are scared. So I don't know if you could say a little bit more about that.
Okay, yes. So I think one of the first things that we did was start to frame decolonisation, and what that might mean. And it wasn't done in a prescriptive way. So I didn't come with a definition, or we didn't come with a definition of what it was. We actually used a video, which you might find useful, by Chichinanda Ngozi Adichie, The Danger of a Single Story. And we use that as a mechanism to kind of help people to start to think around what does it mean when people only see you through one lens, or that you are presented through one lens. And then we talked around some of the issues around that are involved in decolonisation. So that set the tone in terms of people kind of having a bit of a light bulb moment through that session around thinking, not getting caught up on too much about the word decolonisation at that point. It was still an issue, but it was actually helping to frame what we really need to be focusing on. That actually, decolonisation is not about the elimination of anybody. It's about ensuring that all stories are present and available. And recognising how those stories might not have been made available through the colonial experience. And so that was the first thing. And then we had breakout rooms. So we were put into breakout rooms. So small groups is really important, where people basically knows each other. We're not, it's not like we don't know each other, we do know each other. So that helps. I think even in a space where you've got bigger teams, having small groups of people talking to each other is important, because it helps you to break down a little bit and talk a little bit. So, and then the issue around, feeling uncomfortable necessarily about even using the term decolonisation, it sounds like the something. And we had that conversation carried on for quite a few sessions. We did have that conversation. So it's actually making space to have the conversation, have the discussion, hear different perspectives on it, have a discussion about, are we going to use the phrase decolonisation? We didn't then decide that. We did because we actually explored it extensively and understood why we were using it, and that this was the right phrase to use. But it's actually having the space and the confidence to feel that you can actually have that conversation, because oftentimes people don't feel that they can have that conversation.
Yeah, it's very difficult. And it's really interesting. Laura was thinking on exactly the same lines as I was when she asked, how did you create a safe space where people shared rather than worrying about saying the wrong things? So I think you probably covered that, unless you wanted to say any more, Shirley, in relation to that. I'm going to thank John, because he's provided us with a link to The Danger of a Single Story video that you mentioned, Shirley.